Welcome to the Sacred Rebellion, the space where truth isn't filtered, sovereignty is sacred, and the rebellion is a return to self. This isn't just a podcast, it's a remembering. We're here to break the trance of comfortability, reclaim our gifts, and rise as the embodied rebels we were born to be. Here we journey with the wild hearts, wayshowers, and visionaries who choose their truth over comfort, their mission over fear, and their souls over the system. This is where the coded ones come to speak. The ones who didn't fit in because they were never meant to, and the ones who turn their pain into power and their story into their medicine. So drop in, take a breath, and let's remember who we are, one sacred rebellion at a time. Welcome back to the Sacred Rebellion, the space where sovereignty leads systems, our questions, and the cosmic truths always find its way home. Today I'm joined by Danielle, an intuitive astrologer and cosmic business guide who helps soul-led women decode their birth charts, navigate life transitions, and build aligned businesses rooted in divine timing. Whether you're just curious about astrology or you're building a multi-dimensional brand that honors both your soul and your strategy, Danielle brings a grounded, empowering approach to the stars that make the wisdom of the cosmos not only practical, but potent. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Danielle.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. What a beautiful introduction.
Yeah, I've known Danielle for a little while here. I've had her do some of my chart. I've learned a lot about astrology through Danielle. I just went through my North Node return for those who, you go through that in your mid 30s. I call it almost like your midlife crisis. It's totally why people go through midlife crises. Go through your North Node return.
Seriously.
And let's dive into it. What was your sacred rebellion moment when you knew astrology was part of your mission?
I love this. I would have to say when I was in Thailand, I was teaching English out there for 6 months, and I was not at all an entrepreneur just yet. I was just getting into astrology. I was going through my own grief at the time where I was, grieving my dad. I was grieving a lot of just a huge ego death that I was going through, but I didn't have the words to describe what was happening. It was just a dark night of the soul. Nothing made sense. What the hell is going on? Astrology helped me understand karmically what's happening. Why is this happening? It was more on a collective level, that I was following along with the, major transits for everybody, which is a huge part of what I do now, right? I kind of took on that for everybody else because I knew how much it helped me when I was going through a really dark time. But what the sacred rebellion moment was when I remember I was at a workshop for the new year in Thailand, and they basically had us write out, it was a drawing exercise of almost like a logo of what is the symbol for this upcoming year for you. And mine was, I just started intuitively drawing a light bulb, and I wrote underneath, "Be the light." And that was the first time that I shared out loud, I don't think that I want to be a teacher anymore. I don't think that I want to kind of be a part of the matrix anymore. I felt my, light work energy and just being a healer and just sharing spiritual wisdom with the collective. That was when it was really being awakened within me. And I was claiming that title. And I remember so clearly the guy was reading my chart, and basically I was telling him I'm into astrology, and he was showing me, he's Danielle, you are not meant to just be a teacher. Yes, you have a teacher archetype within you, but you are meant to break the rules and do things your own way and live life authentically, in a way that feels free for you. You can't be tied to any type of system. And for me, that was the public school system, right? And I just remember feeling so resonant in my body. I'm you're so right, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what to do first. How do I do this? And he was you don't have to do anything. You're just being. You're being the light. As long as you are continuing to have that mantra in your life, you're always going to shine, kind of magnetize what's meant for you. Just concentrate on being the light. And so from that point forward, I just remember I was all right, I only have 3 months left in Thailand. And that was when I was so focused on myself, my spirituality, my manifestations. That was when I was really getting into it. I was such a baby person at that time. And then I came home with just like this full confirmation of like, I know that I'm not going to go back to teaching. I'm not going to go back to bartending. I'm not doing anything that my old self would do to make money. I'm going to fully just like step into this role as a healer, as a teacher for, spiritual coaching and all of that. And then boom, it was like things just lined up and I just really started from there. So I came home from Thailand with $200 to my name. And then things within 3 days manifested very quickly.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I was also a teacher, and I remember like the last month of school, there's like this feeling when you know something's ending. I know you know what I'm talking about. I've had this quite a few times in my life. And one of the times was when I left teaching and I knew that that chapter was closed. Like, and it was weird because I only taught for a year. Like I did my student teaching and then I taught and it was my class was great. Like I taught fifth grade and I just remember like the last month just seeing how everything just was like it's this energy that you know is collapsing and it's undeniable. And I really want to point this out because this is like happening again in my life where I'm noticing a lot of chapters closing. And it's happened in religion. I remember the last time I went to the LDS church and I had a baby. She was like 6 weeks old. She's 8 now. And I remember sitting in there and knowing like I didn't really know, but I just knew in my body there was this feeling of like this place isn't for you. Yeah. And it's an undeniable feeling that I really would like to like did you have that same feeling like this is not for me?
Yeah. I remember it happening in the teacher lounge because I also used to teach in the States before I taught in Thailand. So I was really technically only a teacher for 2 years. But I remember specifically the teacher lounge when there was like, everyone's starting to vent about the kids and vent about their paycheck and like the rules and the politics and like, just all the things that come up when teachers get together. And I just remember sitting there and it was a moment of like seeing how much older that teacher was, how long they've been a part of this like, career. And this was obviously just my first time stepping into this. And I just felt like, do I want to be this person when I grow up? Right? Like it was just no offense to them. Like it's a really freaking tough job. And I think that that's the part that I had to give empathy and like, it wasn't from a place of judgment. I was like, yo, they're burnt out and they're not getting paid enough for this. And like, they have every right to feel bitter and like annoyed right now because this system sucks. But also I was in a position of realizing I don't want to be this when I'm older. Like I don't want to be stuck in this. And so it was more of like almost like a future self that I was like tapping into and just realizing like I'm not going to feel happy. And so for me, that was my biggest like breakthrough. But of course, it needed to come with a lot of confusion and also even like, well, Danielle, you just spent so much time, graduating with a degree for this. Like, what do you mean this isn't what you're going to do? So it was also just like almost frustration with myself where I felt I was almost trapped in something because I worked so hard for it and I achieved it. And it's like what I'm supposed to do. But then I was like, no, I just know intuitively this isn't it. So there has to be something else.
I had that same thing. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I was pregnant. So it was like, I'm going to just go be a mom. And I remember my mother being so upset. She's like, you're just going to throw away your degree? You're just not going to use it? I'm like, it's a pretty paper in my office.
Exactly.
And obviously, like, I mean, you and I both teach, like you teach astrology and I teach, different spiritual aspects and like mindset things and stuff. And you still use those techniques. You still, in fact, I've actually been told they're like, you're a really different teacher than I've ever had because I think it's because we have taught in a classroom. And and I think it's because we're able to break down steps because we know that's actually how kids don't learn any different than an adult. So it's like you're able to break down those concepts in a way that probably someone who hasn't taught wouldn't have that natural ability to just teach something, and I think that's what differentiates probably someone like you and I who both have teaching degrees, is that we actually have that skill to be able to break things down. Or if someone doesn't understand it, it doesn't come from a place of like annoyance or frustration. It's like, oh yeah, they just don't get it, so I'm able to explain this in a different way, or maybe bring it from a different aspect. And I think that's where someone like you and I who have a teaching degree would be a different spiritual entrepreneur than someone who doesn't, because we have those skills. So I always say that 40K degree didn't go to a waste.
Yeah, absolutely.
you know
When I like claimed the teacher role again, like that was a big deal for me because I was like right after teaching just going into like energy healing and and then of course the coaching world, and then I'm like, well, hold on, like I know that like I can build these skills and like I love that work, but I also recognize that like what is my inherent gift? Like, what do? I teach. And once I got into like the teaching aspect with astrology, I really felt an alignment. I'm like, oh, this is home, right? Like, I remember being a kid teaching my little teddy bears and like grading papers with a red pen. Like, that was my archetype. I was just like, no, I'm meant to be a teacher when I grow up. I always knew it. So yeah, I love that because I agree. I think especially a topic like astrology, it's so complex. And so when you get to simplify it in a way that feels practical and it feels like you understand, to me, like the light bulb moment, I'm like, yes, you get it. And it just makes me so happy.
Yeah, it's like this like little dopamine hit is why I always think of it as when someone like when it's like the epiphany, right? When someone breaks through like a mindset thing. For me, it's like, oh, the epiphany just came through, and it's like almost like a dopamine hit that you get that feels good in your body, that for the first time that person actually sees that perspective and they see it from a different view, or yeah, I completely agree with that. Were there any moments in your life where astrology helped you break free from a conditioning or reclaim?
Oh yeah, so many times. I feel like what I love about astrology is it really just kind of is a mirror of your story, right? It shows you your patterns, it shows you your shadows, it shows you your upbringing, your conditioning, like you said. And so for me, like I can literally look at my chart still today, years after being an astrologer for so many people, but sometimes I'll still look at my chart and be like, wow, I get it, right? Because it's just like, you don't know until you're in an experience that you're just kind of subconsciously or unconsciously, I should say, reacting to something, or you're like, kind of just responding kind of in a very, you're not thinking about it. And then you're like, wait, hold on. I see why I do that from this place. And so for me, I think I'll try to give an example. Like in terms of business, right? When I was first learning business, I was learning from very masculine, very like, almost like bro marketing kind of like people who taught, how to do this work, to build an online brand, what it's going to take, being a content creator, all these things. And it wasn't until I really learned my chart in terms of like how intuitive I am and how much time I actually need for myself and how much like space I need to retreat and like how I get my ideas and how I download like, my offerings and like, the way that I'm meant to show up. It really helped me like break out of even like the matrix within business to be like, wait, actually, I know that really worked for that person, but that doesn't work for me. And I'm actually burning out trying to like do what they're teaching me what to do. So I really started to like give myself full permission. I think that's the biggest thing that astrology gifts you. It's permission. It's like permission to be you and not do the things that you were taught or like how other people expect things from you or like what is successful or whatever. And so that was like one of the many moments that I was like deconditioning from a lot of like the beginning things that I was doing in my business to make it what it is now, and then shifting it to actually feel in alignment with my energy so I can sustain it in a way that feels successful to me versus like what's successful in like on paper, right? So
yeah, I think I always tell people, they're like, yeah, I hired this marketer for Instagram, or I hired this person for such and such, and I'm like, we're breaking away from the matrix, we're not stepping back into it. So you have to realize is like, I love how you brought up that I was getting burned out by what they were telling me, is because what you're here to do is essentially, as a spiritual entrepreneur, is to break out of the matrix. So why would you do what normal business people do? You wouldn't. And so it's like, sometimes in a spiritual business, it may not make sense logically, but when spirit or God or whoever you believe in is asking you to do something, you know, a lot of times our human wants to plug back into that matrix and be like, but I don't want to, but what happens if I do this? It's a lot of trust. It's a lot of, I call it the ping pong ball, right? It's like the masculine, feminine, the masculine, and feminine, where typically as a business entrepreneur, it's all masculine, you know, especially in the 3D world. And so you have to essentially get the downloads, which is the feminine, put it into an action, which is the masculine. And I think you have spiritual entrepreneurs that are either really far right or really far left. And what I mean by right is your masculines on your right and your feminines on your left, to the people who are listening. And I think oftentimes it's like, I see a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs that are like, well, I'm just going to trust. I'm like, if you don't put an offer out, like maybe a workshop or like, you know, your one-on-one, you're not advertising, people aren't going to find you, because it's not like it was 20 years ago. Like, there's a lot of us that are awakening, that have soul groups that are here to help awaken or teach things or enlighten or whatever you want to call it in our soul groups. And a lot of us are trailblazers, and that's pretty much what this podcast is really bringing in, is these trailblazers that are here to blaze new realities, blaze in new frequencies. And so what I want my listeners to understand is, like, Danielle took something from a masculine aspect, realized she was being burned out, and went back into her feminine, and then came back into her masculine. And that's what makes a successful business in a spiritual entrepreneur, is understanding the balance and the harmony between the masculine and the feminine. That's what I'm finding.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think that's an ongoing lesson, right? It's like recognizing also what is yours to do, right? Versus what could be something that you can get assistance with when you get that time to actually have assistance. Because I think that's my biggest thing as well, where because I built this from the ground up and I'm so like proud of it, I also notice how much I protect it. And then I'm not actually doing myself a highest service to delegate the things that will allow me to stay in a good balance, versus like trying to do everything on my own. And then I actually continue to burn out. So that's my lesson, right? And I think that that's a beautiful just reminder for people, where, especially when you're seeing things from your charts perspective, it's like, you have certain things that you're really good at and your strengths that you're meant to like continue kind of giving you the fuel and the motivation to continue your business or whatever your passions, whatever your aspirations are. And then there's also things that it's okay if they're not your strengths, but we don't get discouraged about that or feel like I have to like know all the things, right? Like, this is the beauty of especially support through entrepreneurship. It's like we connect with other people who are like, hey, I actually have that gift. And then we see the synastry and the balance with other people as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, you know, I think it's really, and I've talked this about in other podcasts, is that it's really common for us trailblazers to want to be the lone wolf, right? It's like the lone wolf is so big for a lot of us.
Yes.
And I think it's kind of like this wave of people that we don't do what like people in 20 years ago or 30 years ago did with astrology or healing. My ears are ringing literally as I'm saying this. And it's also not about people who want to continue those old patterns, right? Those old, and not that old modalities are bad things. It's not, but we live in a different age than I think we've ever have, and it's the age of instant everything, instant money, instant. It's that quantum aspect that we're living in this experience, right? Like the age of Aquarius, right? It's that instant energy. It's that instant money. It's the instant gratification. And the thing is a lot of people are like, oh, it's such a bad thing that you have but that's the age we're living in, is that it's moving to those things. And from what I can see is old modalities, they took time. It's like, oh, you know, it takes this many days for the energy to clear out. It takes this many hours, it's like always something, right? Where it's like, that's not the case anymore. It's either you figure this, the energy comes in and you move, or someone else is going to get the download and they're going to start moving. That's how the energy is working right now. Can you
Yeah.
maybe see what does that mean in astrology? What are you noticing? I know age of Aquarius, right?
Yeah, I would say, especially what I'm picking up on right now is like when you're talking instant, it's like the energy is moving so quickly, right? Like, especially this year, 2025, even 2020, like there was so much rare astrology that was happening all at the same time. And I think like that's the part when you're saying like we're in a new age and we've never experienced this before, like when we're talking about some of these outer planets, like Pluto being in Aquarius or Neptune being in Aries, like we as a species, like your grandfather, your great grand, like we've never experienced this. Like no one knows what this is like because this is like all the way back from like the early, maybe like 1900s, late 1800s, like we don't know what this is like. So I feel like when it comes to this, I guess like new age, so to speak, like we are the creators of it, right? Like we know, like we're the ones who are going to learn and evolve with it. And so when it comes to, I'm trying to like pick up on like how quickly things are moving and how like quickly people are waking up as well. Like I think that that's another huge wave of even Pluto being in Aquarius and Neptune being in Aries. It's like this is a spiritual awakening for the collective, and this is also a spiritual awakening for people to really like learn who they truly are and move based off of like feels fulfilling for them compared to like what anyone from their past has ever taught them who to be. Like, so I think again, I'm even picking up on how just like the generation part of it, right? Because these are generational planets. So this isn't like, oh, I have my Pluto in this sign and like that's what it means. It's like, no, like if you have your Pluto in a certain sign, you're a part of an entire generation. There's a whole collective of souls. And when you were talking about souls groups, like that's what it was reminding me of, So I think about even like the souls that are being born right now, I think about like the future generations and like what are they going to do when it comes to all of this new age energy. So it's not even just up to us, right? Like we have to remember like this is like, there's so much coming through for even like the new souls that are being born that are going to carry the frequency as well. So I just feel like I think like the older generations, like obviously they are kind of getting older and they're going to be on their way out. And then I just think about like how the Gen X millennials are going to be like the old people. And like, yet we're just such youthful souls and we're the ones who are so rebellious. We're the ones who broke a lot of rules. And so I think about how like we are going to just like continue, birthing these new souls. And like, it's just, so now we're just in a new world. We're in a new world. And so, yeah, it's going to get there's going to be a lot of things that people are going to have to get used to, which in my mind is change. But it's also, I feel like we are ready on a collective conscious level to actually like accept that like, no, things will never go back to the way that things were before. And we are the ones who are creating what's
Yeah, my Pluto's in Scorpio, which I'm
mine
a moon.
too.
Yeah, so and I've read a lot that those are the rebellions. It's the rebellion. And if you think about, if you're saying that transits were like the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a lot of war going on at that point.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of war and, a lot of, they would consider themselves rebellions, I know like English and Scotland were going at it, and they'd be considered the rebellions if you didn't follow the societal norm of what everyone accepted that was normal, right? And we've seen that through history multiple times where it's like, what side of history are you going to be on? And it's the, it's not necessarily about right or wrong. It's about perspective, really. And I mean, I don't get into politics because I don't like politics personally, but I think they're all one and the same bird, same eagle, in my perspective. But the fact of it is that there's a lot of, if you watch the news, there's a lot of corruption that's being exposed. And I find that fascinating because it's like all of us conspiracy theorists, right, that we all been called over 2020, it's all coming out. That was all legit. And we're like, yeah, y'all realize the word conspiracy was actually created by the FBI, when John F. Kennedy was killed. And it's always fascinating to like have that conversation. People are like, that's not where that word came from. I'm like, it's actually, look it up. It's very fascinating. That's actually where the word conspiracy theory came from. But it's fascinating for me because, my parents are essentially baby boomers, and my mom would probably be on the later aspect of that. But you know, her parents, my parents, both my grandparents were in, both my grandfathers were in World War II. And just thinking of like that perspective and realizing that history like shifts, right? It's like if you learn history one way and then you learn it from another person, it shifts because history is just a perspective, right? And so it's really interesting how astrology for me has been like, if I have something going on in my life and I look at my chart and I'm like, yeah, that's why. You know, it's like the new moon right now is in my 11th house, and so it's affecting certain aspects of myself, right? We just had a new moon in Gemini, and it's affecting certain aspects of your life. And so if you look at the transits, they can actually communicate with you why you're feeling emotional or why you're feeling like you're experiencing, you know, maybe some discomfort in your relationship, or maybe friendships or job or career choice. Can you maybe brush a little bit more about what each house represents and how that would expect, you know, for people going through like big life changes, griefs or whatever? How can that chart be a tool for healing and giving you kind of like an understanding? Because I always tell people, I'm like, listen, we're all stardust, and we really are, because if we weren't, the stars alignment and your chart wouldn't mean anything, right? So we have to be part of those stars. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yes, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. This is actually one of the first ways that I used my chart, right? Like I wasn't using it for business. I wasn't even doing readings for anyone. I was just trying to understand, you know, who I am and how can I support myself energetically, especially when I was getting into all my healing work. So, you know, when it comes to the rising sign, you know, the rising sign represents the first house. The rising sign to me is probably one of the more important parts of your chart, probably more important than your sun sign, because it shows the evolution of who you are becoming. It's not just like your personality of like, I'm a Pisces. It's like, yeah, beautiful. You have those traits. And like that, your sun sign is very important too. It's a very huge part of your purpose. But I will say that the rising sign grows with you. You know, you are really learning how to work in alignment with your timeline when you're working with your rising sign. Because if you know your rising sign and you recognize what happens around that season of the year. So for me, it's Leo. For you, it's Cancer, right? It's like when you start to understand, okay, Cancer season, Leo season's coming up. What is changing? How am I being reborn right now? So there's always so much information just from that alone when it comes to your sense of self, your identity, you know, how you want to move, like what you're letting go of. Like there's always like a ego death to rebirth process that happens around that season of your life.
Oh, it
So I
sure
would
does.
always, yeah, like to me, it's always Cancer season, the season right before Leo, right? I'm always like, oh, here we go again. Like it's happening. So for you, it's Gemini, right? We're in it right now. For you, you're like, oh, here we go. Okay. Because we're about to enter Cancer season next. So I always say, like, just try to like be a little reflective around that time, because it's going to give you a lot of information of what you're surrendering into, what you need to like, what chapters need to close for you to step into this new cycle. So the first house is very much the self, your relationship to who you are, and a lot of like, you know, the new beginning of who you get to become. The second house is all financial related. So these houses work in an axis. So we have to understand, like, it's not just like they're not working in silos, right? Like they're working together. So if we kind of go back to that first house rising sign, we know that it's the relationship to self is also a reflection in terms of how other people see you, right? And the relationship with others. So how is that balancing out in terms of like, who are you versus who people taught you to be versus who you are when you're around other people? Does that version of you change when you are with your partner, when you're with a friends group, when you're teaching, when you're in business? Like, you know, we know that we have different masks that we wear sometimes. We have different hats that we wear, different roles that we play. So it's just like being very true and authentic to you. So I think that's, again, the part where it's like, a reflection sometimes comes through where it's like, oh, actually, no, that version of myself is no longer aligned. So sometimes the people and relationships in your life also change with that, right? We know that happens. So when it comes to the second house being about your financial relationships, it's also in relation to the opposite axis, which is the eighth house. So the second and eighth house both rule finances, just in different ways. And I think that like this is a really beautiful lesson in the healing journey around your self-worth and your value, right? It's like the relationship you have with money. It's like the relationship you have with everything, you know, your relationship with receiving, your relationship with exchanging with other people, your relationship with like your compulsive spending habits, you know, like it's your addictions, even sometimes where like we are almost attaching ourselves to something to make us feel better. We buy something for retail therapy. We, you know, price something out of ego. Like there's so many lessons within the second house that can teach us a lot of information around our relationship to everything else. So yeah, I look at the second house when it comes to your income and just like how are you with money? And then you look at the third house with your voice, you know, anything related to your throat chakra, how you are communicating with other people, your communication style, your creative outlets, you know, are you a writer? Do you like to read? Do you like to study? What do you like to study? What do you like to learn? So this is like a learning house, but it's also a really good lesson around, are you speaking up? Are you saying what you really feel? Like, it's a beautiful throat chakra healing and clearing. It's also to me about like your daily life. Like the sixth house and the third house have that in common, where it's like, what are you consuming? What are you doing to thinking of like your mindset and like, how you're talking about yourself and how you're supporting yourself, So there's a lot there as well in terms of like your daily thoughts, your daily habits, and like your daily mind. You have the fourth house, which is about your regular home life. To me, the fourth house has the most conditioning. So we have to look at that from like a ancestral lineage perspective. Like that's not even just your energy. That's your parents, your grandparents. That's your mom specifically. Like, the fourth house is very feminine. It's traditionally the house of Cancer. So like that to me is like where you are potentially going to disrupt a lot of the old shit that you were taught from your upbringing. If for any reason you're like, this absolutely is not meant or serving me. The fourth house, you can learn a lot about your inner child. So there's so much there that, it goes very deep and it's very emotional. And I always say, like, give yourself grace, because like this is where you can open up a whole can of worms of like your ancestral history,
Oh,
know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's where I have like the most placements is in my fourth house. South node is in the fourth house. Pluto, Scorpio, fourth house. So many. I have like a stack of planets in my fourth house.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely the disruptor, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it's even having all those Scorpio placements too, right? I know you have a lot of Scorpio there.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we can feel like the black sheep.
Yeah.
This is where we can be that alchemist of, our past and our trauma and our survival stories, and be a different person for our kids, right? Like I'm not a mother, but I know you are. And I know that that's such a huge part of your journey of like, I'm going to, gift my kids a different life than what I was given. So that's like a part of the fourth house journey, especially if you become a parent. The fifth house is a similar energy when it comes to children, and when it comes to your inner child, but it's different because this is more around like your play and your pleasure. So when it comes to inner child, it's like your creativity and like what you like to do. And like, I think of kids who are like in different clubs and activities, and like, what are your hobbies? What lights you up, what brings you joy. So the fifth house is such a house of like, exploration of your soul in terms of like the different instant things that you like. And that gets to change over time. So I always say that if you're going to be doing any healing work, it's going to be a lot of like, are you giving your inner child room to play? Or are you like just being really hunkered down on like responsibilities and shit that needs to get done? The sixth house is all around your health. This is your physical vessel. This is how are you taking care of yourself? Are you regulating your nervous system? Are you too busy to take care of yourself? Like this is where we neglect our bodies the most. I feel like the sixth house being both about work and health just reminds you there needs to be a balance. There has to be a work-life balance, or this is where you tend to burn out. I know that this is my biggest lesson. I have my North Node in the 6th house. So when I was telling you, everyone, like, oh yeah, like I'm learning how to be an entrepreneur, but also make sure that I'm retreating and recharging when I need to. This is a huge part of my journey. It keeps going. 7th house is all around relationships and like how you partner with people. We talked about 8th house being financial, but it's also the house of just complete transformation. I think if anyone has 8th house placements, you understand what happens on the other side. Like there's unseen worlds that you're tapping into. This is the shadow realm world journey. This is where you are a true alchemist of like working with darkness and transmuting it into light. Like there's so much with the 8th house that gets really heavy and also taboo. I think about those who are in unconventional work, and they are the most misunderstood. They are the healers. They are the magic workers. And when we're in this 8th house realm, this is where we get projected on a lot. And we also have a lot of soul contracts and karma that we work through, and it keeps going. It gets a little lighter. The 9th house is where we get to continue our learning journey, but it gets to be more hands-on experience. I always think of the 9th house as like the one who did something like I did. You go abroad, you study, you teach, you go into a new culture, you learn how other people live. Like it's like breaking out of your comfort zone of like your everyday hometown life. And it's like seeing that, there's other people who have different lifestyles, different religions, different belief systems, different just ways of being. So when you learn from a new, like broader perspective, it just helps you remember the world is a big fucking place. And the way that you were taught, like, especially all the systems that you're talking about, like breaking out of the matrix, like that's the 9th house to me sometimes. It's like you recognize your religion is not the only religion. You recognize your, spirituality is just like one aspect of it. So yeah, so there's a lot of learning through other people, other cultures, other experiences, being open-minded for the 9th house. The 10th house is all business, all career, all legacy, all like achievement, all goals. It's a little bit more mundane, so to speak. Like that's more like, what are you working towards? What do you actually care about to like leave behind in this world? The 11th house is all around like the people that you're going to meet in your journey that are meant to share a common mission. Like the 11th house needs to be like the people that are going to match where you're trying to go, the future vision of where you want to be. If you're in a friends group or a social club or a network that you're like, these people are not my people, that's where the 11th house is going to teach you a lot of valuable lessons around like, who is your support group? Who are you learning from? And who's teaming up with you to actually bring you to where you're meant to go? And then the 12th house, again, very similar. Like if there's anything, the 12th house is a house of healing. It is a house of complete surrender, ego death, like letting go. It's a place where you need to be in solitude, really listen to your inner voice, really tune into your subconscious mind. What is it speaking to you? What is spirit telling you? This is where we really go into this womb of being prepared for something new. I always say like, this is a time of just when you were talking about things collapsing and like, it's not to say it's a tower moment, but it's definitely, it's almost like a 4 of Swords moment where it's like, you need to just rest. You need to rest and you need to let go. Like there's no controlling what happens in the 12th house. So.
Yeah. I'm like sitting here thinking of like where all my placements are as you're going through that. My North Node is in my 10th house. So business is essentially what I'm here to leave as a destiny, is from what you're saying. And 4th house, which would be the opposite, which would be, the fourth and fifth house would be, that'd be almost exact like transition over when you were talking about different placements and things like that. I'm just sitting here going through like, okay, this is what this is. This is what this is, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is really helpful Because I know, like, when it's something is your destiny, you're going to hit, like, this is kind of the theme I've been feeling lately is like when you're here to hit something that's really big and that's like what you're here to leave, like essentially your legacy, which is, my business is in my 10th house and which is in my north node. You're going to be hit with a lot of failures because people who are hit, in order to find or align yourself into an aspect that is a legacy, you've got to figure out all the things that aren't working, and it's like, I think that's something that some people forget is that when something isn't working for you, and this is even a reminder for myself, is that it's this ability, this almost like little gift or a little token that gives you that reroute, right? Because when people ask me all the time, they're like, how do you just not give up? And it's like, it runs through your veins. Like, you can't just randomly, I know you get this because this is probably the same way you are, is you can't just give up. Because when you know it's your destiny and you don't even have to know that it's your destiny. You can feel it. Being someone who's super clairsentient, like it's that feeling of, even if the negative energy comes through or the doubt sayers or the darkness or whatever you want to call it, you can't ignore something that it's that energetic frequency that's just pushing you, even though like your human just wants to scream and give up. And like, I mean, I think most spiritual entrepreneurs or even people in life can say in a marriage, with children, with a business, with anything, with yourself, there's this point in your life that just, if you give up, you'll just stay the same, and you can't stay the same. So there's this energetic frequency pushing you forward that's undeniable.
Yeah.
And I really think those specific placements, they're almost like this natural gift to give people a soul-aligned path, whether it's in business, whether it's in motherhood, whether it's in work, whether it's in, anyone who's listening to this, because this podcast isn't just for people who have a spiritual business. Really, astrology is an incredible way to learn so much about yourself. I know that's helped me a lot to like realize that like there's some aspects of myself that I'm not going to deprogram because they're not programs. They're actually who I am. And I want to like, I feel like I need to say this, but like you can't heal your way out of your astrology because it's actually who you are. Like you can't, like I have a lot of Scorpio placements. I'm fiery, I'm sassy, I'm also super passionate, and I come from this place of like power and authenticity. And I can't heal my way out of that. That's the shadow aspects of myself. You can totally tell me whether I'm on the right track here, but this is kind of what I've used astrology for, was it's given me the foundational aspects of myself that make me realize there's not something wrong with me.
Exactly. And it also helps you feel so much more confident of like, yeah, that's who I am, and it's not it's funny because the Scorpio energy it's a fixed energy, right? So it's like, this is me, take it or leave it. They're very like stubborn and like, this is who I am, compared to maybe a mutable sign who's like, I am always changing and I can like be whoever I want to be. And it's like, so every sign has a different perspective of that as well. But I will say that I agree, if there's anything that it gives you other than permission and like confidence and clarity, but it also helps you feel so like accepting of yourself. It's like, okay, I see that. I'm not giving excuses for why I'm being this way, but I am definitely seeing that like that's giving me information. It's a mirror of why I am this way. And so, of course, we recognize free will, like you can change your job, you can change where you're living, you can change your partner, you can change everything about you, and it's still going to reflect in your chart on why that is and when that happened. Like, that's the craziest part of this. You can have multiple different stories and lifetimes in just one lifetime and still have it reflect in your birth chart. It's just wild. So yeah, that's my favorite being the interpretation of things. I'm like, yeah, you made that decision. That makes sense. Oh, you were about to make that decision. That also makes sense. Like, you can't go wrong. Like, I think that's the part also that it reminds you, like, everything is in divine timing. You genuinely cannot make a wrong decision. You are always going to be on the right path. It's just, are you going to take a longer route, or are you going to take like, kind of a straight shot? But sometimes that also is just solely based off your intuition. because this is your karma and this is your life path and what you were meant to choose.
Yeah. Are there specific placements that reveal someone's natural gifts or their soul aligned path in business?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think, any of the personal placements is going to really teach you a lot around how you kind of operate, like in terms of, your relationship to, let's say, when we're talking about like a soul aligned path. I always study the North Node. We kind of touched on that. That's always going to teach me, okay, what are you growing into? What are you learning how to master? When you look on the opposite side of that, the South Node really teaches you about like your gifts that you kind of already mastered from a past life and something that feels very natural to you. I think the South Node also really gives you a perspective of like the potential clients that you're going to be working with or attracting. Because it's just something that feels very karmic. Like these are people that you're meant to meet. So I always look at the North and South Node for that, but a lot of the personal placements, like Mercury will teach me a lot about your communication style, your marketing, your voice, your messaging. Mars is going to teach me like, how much energy are we working with here? If someone has a Mars in Pisces, I'm not going to like try to force them. Well, I would never try to force anything, but it's like, I'm not going to push them and challenge them to do things that may actually like go against their very intuitive, very slower, like more like fluid way of being. Like everyone has a different thing that motivates them. Everyone has a different energy and vitality that's going to drive them towards what they're doing, a different approach to how they're meant to do business. So their Mars is going to teach me a lot about that. And I even think about the moon. The moon sign is going to also give you a lot of information of how are they emotionally going to respond and react to certain situations. Like you said, when things feel like failure, or like if your launch completely flops, if you're in a maybe scarcity position, you're like, crap, I need to make money and like I'm having a low month. And your moon sign is going to teach you a lot about how do you emotionally respond to these situations. It can either be a time where you get really revved up, like, all right, I feel challenged, I'm going to go, like an Aries moon or like a fire moon. Like they may be like, all right, like this is my time, right? Versus let's say like a water moon, like they may need to like rest for a week, and like they have just different emotional needs and different emotional responses. So yeah, the moon sign is going to teach me a lot around, okay, how can I meet your needs so that or how can I reflect to you different ways for you to meet your needs, I should say that, so that you can kind of not bounce back, but just like feel like you're not being completely consumed and taken out by things that may feel, harsh or like hard things that are happening, right? Because everyone, life's, like especially with business owners, life keeps going. So how are we going to navigate all of it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that about the moon, how you respond. I know the moon's like a lot of your emotional aspects of yourself, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I have a Taurus moon, and I would probably say I definitely like typically will persevere through things, which would be typical for a Taurus, right? Is like push your way through. And it was interesting. I actually stumbled upon a quote the other day, which was very interesting in my where I'm at right now. And it said, "When are you going to learn to stop surviving and learn to take a break?" And I thought, wow, that's interesting. That would be nice. I should probably do that.
I should probably do that. That sounds really nice on paper.
That sounded really great. Wow. I don't even know how I would do that.
So funny.
Yeah, take
Yeah.
a break. And I was like, huh, yeah, maybe I should try that sometime. Probably not, but I will try.
Yes. And that's all that matters, right? The intention.
Right? Right. I know ChatGPT is like a really big thing right now. And I know I've had a couple people ask me, they're like, can I look up different aspects of myself on ChatGPT with astrology? Do you use ChatGPT do you recommend that to clients, or what's your thoughts on it?
I think ChatGPT is an incredible tool. Honestly, it's become one of my best friends at this point. I think that it's just so spot on with like how it can reflect things back to you, especially once it starts getting to know you. However, I will say I have tried to give ChatGPT my birth information, because it will say, just give me your birthday, time, place, all the things. It does get it completely wrong. I've noticed that it'll just come up with an entirely different chart that's not mine. So what I've done is I've actually like wrote manually all of my placements, all of my aspects, houses, and like I've actually had to test it a couple of times even to be like, do you remember this about me? Like, tell me about my Venus placement, because sometimes it will just again like get really lost in the sauce and give me something completely different. So I've trained the heck out of my ChatGPT, and of course I will say that it is the information it can give is incredible. And at the same time, it does still feel limited, right? Because if you don't know astrology, like I know that there's a lot of people who know their chart like the back of their hand, like they know their aspects, they know like the transits, like I know what's happening in the sky. If I was to tell ChatGPT, hey, tell me what's going on astrologically today, it's telling me something from like years ago. It's not like it's not caught up yet. So I've noticed that like or even if I ask it like, hey, when was the last time Saturn was in Aries? The years are wrong, like it's just not actually accurate yet. And I know it's going to advance. It's probably going to like catch up, bugs, things happen. But I just have noticed that part where I still, thank God, have my job when it comes to really like knowing how the transits are working right now in relation to my chart. So basically I prompt it based off what I know. I'm like, hey, the new moon in Gemini is conjunct my Mars today. And like, it's in this house and like, it's trining this part of my chart. What does this mean for me? And then it's giving me like some reflections and information based off of like my actual knowledge, versus if I was to try to ask it from not knowing anything, I don't know how accurate it will be. Yeah. So I do use it, and I do think it has a lot of beautiful insights, but I think it definitely has things to work on.
Well, I can definitely tell people are using it because I read a post the other day, and I know Saturn just went to Aries, and I only know this because it affects me so drastically being in my 10th house. But yeah, which is my career and business and stuff like that. And so someone posted the other day, they're like, yeah, Saturn moved into Aries and it will be there for 18 months. And I was like, get that off ChatGPT because that is not accurate. I wanted to comment so bad. I was like, I will refrain. Yes. I was like, did you get this post from ChatGPT? Maybe you should fact check yourself, because it's like, I love ChatGPT and I've trained the heck out of mine too. And it really helps with so many things, when you're writing and you're, I love like getting downloads and just typing it into ChatGPT and then making it sound prettier or whatever. But like what people need to realize is like AI is only good as far as you've trained it, right? It's just it's essentially just like an extension of you with only what you've educated it on, right? I have noticed like a couple of things, like I'll say something. I think I did like a post on oh my gosh, I can't remember the last full moon. Maybe it was a month ago. And I like typed in all this download that I got. And then it was like, are you talking about the full moon? And I was like, damn, ChatGPT, like you just snagged me. And I didn't even realize it was like I just had a really powerful download, and like I started typing in it. So it's interesting because my downloads typically always align with transits, and so I can always like root it back, which is, I think it's just part of, I think astrology has a lot to do with how the system runs, right? Which is essentially the matrix, because we live in a holographic simulation system. And if you didn't know that, you know that now. And it all affects our downloads, what we're receiving intuitively, what we're experiencing collective, all has things to do with astrology. And as channelers, we're channeling astrology and not even realizing that that's actually what we're channeling is an extension of what's going along with the stars and the alignment. And so, I just want to like touch on that a little bit. Is like there's specific, like as a channeler, you're a channeler. You notice that with people, like you'll see people that have like quote collective downloads, and they often align with astrology.
Every time. It's honestly one of my favorite parts of being an astrologer. I'm always so observant of what's trending, what's the hot topic that everyone's talking about, what's the like next big thing, right? Like what's the song that everybody is singing? Like I'm always just so in tune because I'm like, God, this is so so aligned with so and so transit. And I love being that person to be like, this is so Saturn and Aries of you. You know, I just like love being that person because they're like, I don't even know what that means. And I'm like, no, but you do. You do know what it means. It's
Yeah.
just that you can't understand how in alignment what you're offering, what you're saying, what you're sharing actually is, because we are all a part of this experience.
Yeah.
Especially in the news, I'm not surprised by anything anymore. And I think that that's another part of knowing astrology, that it just gifts you with this like, but of course that happened, right? Like no matter how crazy it may be, it could be the craziest, most chaotic thing alive. And you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like this is what's happening. So yeah, so I'm just, it's all a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's one of the most overlooked but powerful pieces of a birth chart people should start working with like today?
I did mention the rising sign being a really big part. I would think that maybe like I'm picturing like your Chiron placement. You know, like when it comes to astrology, everyone gets caught up in the sun, moon, and rising. They even like go as far as, wow, I have all these other placements like my Venus, my Mars, all these things. But your Chiron will show you a lot around your healing path. And I think that it's, if there's anything I know about Chiron, it's that it's not to say it will never be healed. It's just that that's an ongoing journey. Like that will forever be a part of your experience. So whenever you are noticing like insecurities are coming up, or like some old childhood wounds are starting to resurface, or, you know, just like different things that bring you to this like, I just want to retreat. I just need to like kind of look in with like I got to do shadow work. I got to like, you know, kind of look at this. What's the root cause of this? Look to your Chiron, because your Chiron is going to give you a lot of information about, you know, some of these parts of you that are still healing, and you can give yourself grace, you can forgive, you can give yourself compassion. Like for instance, like my Chiron is in Cancer, and I think about, you know, being 34 years old and motherless, or is motherless, what am I saying? Childless. I'm not a mom. And I think about like this concept of like just the domestic lifestyle that I don't have, you know, like I don't have a house, like I don't have a husband, like there's so much of that Chiron and Cancer wound within me that's like, but am I supposed to want these things? Am I supposed to be doing these things? Like I'm still learning how to just take care of myself. I'm still learning how to parent myself. I'm still learning how to like just feed myself, like very like Cancerian themes of like nurturing. And then I'm like, constantly anxious and afraid of like, I can't bring a child into this world. Like I'm still a child. I'm still figuring it out. And then I'm like, but Danielle, it's fine. It's your Chiron in Cancer that's just reminding you like, you can love yourself just as you are. Like you are a mother to yourself, and like you're also a mother to many, and you're nurturing, but you also can't, you also have to have a backbone, and you have to like, you know, there's certain things of the shadow elements there where you can't overgive. You can't just like hold space emotionally for everybody else, because you're going to absorb that so much within yourself. Like I'm so empathic. I'm going to like pick up on their pain, pick up on their traumas. And like, so there's so much of that. Then I'm also learning emotional boundaries and energetic boundaries. And so the point is that once I understood my Chiron placement, it helped me really like accept certain parts of my journey, and also like give myself full permission to feel confident being 34 with no kids and be like, yeah, this is my life. Like I may not have children. I don't know if I want children, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And so like these are just things that I'm accepting because of that placement. So yeah, definitely look at your Chiron. Know what sign it's in, know what house it's in, because that's going to give you so much around the parts of you that are healing in this lifetime.
Yeah. What do you feel the collective is being invited into right now from a astrological perspective?
What a loaded question. I mean, right now, I definitely sense that we are about to enter a very interesting age, I guess, because, you know, it's a lot of dismantling of authority figures. So we are learning how to be our own authority of our lives. And I saw this thing the other day that really spoke to me. It was basically saying, it's just like there's no rules anymore. right? And I think like there was something so profound about the shift of how she was wording it, because she was first wording it from a venting perspective of like,
Mm-hmm.
there's no rules anymore. There's no rules anymore, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
she was like, but wait, there's no rules anymore. That means there's no rules anymore. And then she like made it in a place of personal freedom. And so I think that in a society that is very clearly showing us the corruption and showing us like there's like authoritative figures that are going to try to restrict certain parts of our rights, you know, our money, our just the things that we were relying on for so long, you know, the systems that were in place. If those things are being taken away, and I'm putting that in air quotes because, you know, we recognize that some of these things weren't actually serving us at all, but we also know that we are learning how to create a sense of personal freedom in a place that feels like our freedom is being taken away from us, right? And I think that we're also learning that this is going to take a lot of discernment of the information that's being shared, because I think a lot of lies, deception is going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of cult like behavior in terms of, you know, people desiring a savior, people desiring someone to help us get out of a really hard situation.
Yeah.
We're going to have to like really discern when we are following someone versus being our own sovereign leader. And so that to me is where I feel like a lot of people who have been in cults are going to wake up. They're going to have identity crises. They're going to have a whole ego death around it. And then I also think that a lot of people who are really confused and lost and scared are going to go back to like, you know, some systems that feel like are already in place, whether that's religion or like a politics or like, you know, looking to a leader or whatever. So I just think it's really important for us to just remember, like, we have to learn how to be sovereign in what we're choosing, what we're learning, what we're believing, and not trying. I'm hearing don't try to save everyone, because everyone is going to be on their own karmic journey.
Yep.
They're meant to learn what they're meant to learn.
Yep.
So if you notice that like a friend or a family member is going off the deep end and you want to like bring them back, it may take them some time to learn it from themselves. But everyone at this moment is learning a lot for themselves. So the choices that they're making is because they are making it for themselves. Like, it's not every man for themselves, but it is to say that like you have to just try to like stay in your own lane of like, what am I going to be doing for myself? And like, what's most important to me? I can't like help everybody, right? Not everybody is going to come along for the ride, especially when we're all like on different timelines and different paths right now.
Yeah, I'm noticing that a lot. In fact, my 6/6 portal is essentially about that. It's essentially about dismantling the illusion in the union of fixing, because I think that's the wounded masculine, is the fixing. It's the essential, and I, you know, female and male can both have this, by the way, just because you're, you know, the wife or the husband or whatever. But I'm noticing a lot of that in unions is that a lot of us are to the point where we're just in a space that if it doesn't even have to be in a union, it can be a friendship, is that if this isn't going to serve you, then what's your option out? Right. And you can't save anybody. And I think that's a huge, this was actually in one of my previous podcasts was, you know, the role of Christianity that's coming through right now is really heavy. And I think it's this fear-based, you know, people thinking like, and just coming from someone who has left religion. And I mean, it's, the religion I belong to, it hit all those cult check marks. Okay. And so leaving religion, essentially going to Christianity, realizing that it wasn't any different, right? It's like, I realized that nothing outside of me was going to come in and fix the issues. And I couldn't just give it to you know, this energy frequency of like, I'm just going to give it to Jesus and it'll all go away. It didn't go away. The pain and the noise in the mind and the frequencies and the feeling and the discomfort and the projections and the attacks, and they didn't go away. Religion didn't give me anything. It wasn't until I learned how to protect my frequency, how to learn what wasn't mine, how to heal energy, how to alchemize, how to move energy off my system, because I'm so freaking clairsentient. I feel everybody's dirty garbage all the time. And you want to know who gets projected and dumped on? Me. I do. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. If you're one person, you don't have to say shit and people start dumping their shit on you. That's because you hold a frequency of light. It's like what you said, I'm going to be the light. Danielle, how many times in your life have you been dumped on because you are the light? Projected all the time. And so it's like, you have to come to understand that, like, if you don't learn how to clear vampiric cords, which are so bad right now, vampiric cords are horrible. And I'm noticing it in clients. I'm noticing it with, even my children and the lighthead, like going out in public and being like, oh my gosh, the room is spinning. Someone's trying to connect to my field. I can feel it in my field. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to know this. That's a vampiric cord. That's somebody draining your life force from you. And if you don't know how to protect your aura and how to protect your field, that's going to get worse, is what I'm hearing from spirit. It's like, it's going to get louder. And the reason why it's going to get louder is because spirit's the type of energy that's like, I'm going to give you a little clue in, and then you don't hear me. I'm going to give it louder, and I'm going to give it louder until it's so up in your face that you're like, yep, can't ignore that anymore. That's in my face, right? And I'm noticing that in the collective as well. It's moving with all of the energies, as well as the frequencies just getting louder.
Yep.
And I think it's because of the chaos and disruption. And the thing is I think it's only going to get like more chaotic almost, and until people are going to be like, we live in a patriarch society. Congratulations. This is not what, I've been living under a rock. And people think that, and this isn't to bash men or, matriarch or whatever. It's the fact that I've seen it in a friend's divorce where she had a female lawyer. Female lawyer wasn't treated the same as a male lawyer. I've seen that multiple times. And it's like, and almost the female lawyer has to almost be bitchy in order to get a point across. And then it's like, well, why are you being so aggressive? And it's that emotional abuse of a reaction that's happening in society. And there's so many little twerks and twists that are happening with the patriarch to keep them in a space of that, I call it little boy energy, right? It's that scared little boy that's sitting there and be like, don't have feelings, because if you have feelings, you're a girl, and it's like moving into that aspect of men. And I think that the collective right now, so many men are in that dark night of the soul. So many men, I'm seeing it. I've had 3 men reach out for mentorships and things like that, because they're at a place. And so many of us women are essentially the trailblazers. And a lot of them are like, oh, you're willing to work with me, but a lot of women won't work with me. And I'm like, but why? And that's a really big issue in the collective with the energy healers, is a lot of women don't want to work with men. But most of the people who are awake right now, I'm sorry, they're women.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that too?
I was going to say, it's very interesting you're saying that. Yeah, no, I definitely, I've noticed that, there's the division, where it's like women are grouping with the women, men are grouping with the men, but it's like, how are we supposed to be working together, And I think that it's hard. I think it's really hard because, like, I for instance, like, there's so much distortion around it where it's like, can a woman work with a man and like there not be any type of like sexual like energy within them, right? Like there's just so much of like the respect dynamic between, consent and like how they see them, and, like how the relationship is meant to be. Like what's the position of like that person in your life, it's so interesting how like men and women, like just biologically, like what happens, like sometimes it's not even, it doesn't even have to be attraction. Like it's just like where I'm just speaking from my own perspective of like, let's say a man does feel safe for the first time in front of a woman to like speak all of their emotions and their like, fears and their desires. And then they feel so held and they feel so nurtured and they feel so, all these things. And then it's like this dynamic of like, they're looking to you as if like maybe now they grow attraction to you, or maybe now it's like, you're the mother I always needed. And like now they're seeing you as like their motherly guide. So I always find it so fascinating when it comes to like men and women working together, because I'm like, I think about it even for the opposite, where it's like a man who's like really strong and really in his masculine and like, then it's like, ooh, daddy energy, like, ooh, like take care of me, right? It's like, what happened? Where's the neutrality? The neutrality in terms of like how we can learn from one another, teach one another, share moments with one another without there being like, it's like intimacy without the actual like intimacy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, there definitely has to be boundaries. I mean, I've
Yeah.
worked with men before, and there's definitely, it's like, if there's any sexual comments, emotional attachment, you have to be very secure if you're married, first of all, you need to be very secure in your relationship, first of all. And second of all, you need to be very boundary oriented. Whether it's like, I even, to be honest with you, I have to be boundary oriented even with women.
For
Where
sure.
it's like these are my office hours. This is a topic I'm not willing to talk to you about, and vice versa, right? And so it's like there definitely has to be boundaries, whether it's with female or male, and yeah, I think that the more that men can wake up and help men wake up as well. Like I follow a male coach and I'm just like, man, he's so spot on. And he said, he actually brought this up. It was in his reel the other day. He said something along the lines of like, I don't even know what his name is, to be honest with you, but he said something along the lines of like, when a man is held by a woman, it feels like a mother wound that is being seen. When a man is being held by another man, it heals the father wound. But the difference is that the man will actually hear like the perspective differently from another man than he would if it was a woman. And I thought that was very interesting because I think that there's a lot of, obviously there's a lot more awakening women. And the woman really does, like if you go back to like Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, it was like if you actually knew, like if we actually studied the actual history of it, Mary Magdalene was the one who woke up Yeshua instead of like people thinking vice versa. And, I mean, I learned that she was a whore. So, I mean, history definitely has like skewed that and not on accident either. But it's very fascinating that the kundalini energy, the snake energy is the feminine, right? It's that feminine aspect within us that awakens our consciousness. And that just, I mean, people have multiple kundalini awakenings, people have multiple awakening, people have multiple awarenesses. And I think I'm seeing a lot of in the collective of the people looking for answers, and they essentially will use someone like you or like me for even us as savior complexes where they put us on a pedestal and we're like, I always tell people, I'm like, I'm no different than you. I'm in a healing journey myself. And the only difference is that I've put myself out there. That's the only difference. We're all healing together.
Exactly. Yes.
Is there anything else you want to share with what's going on in your business right now or things that you have coming up that you would like to share?
Yeah, for sure. So I am actually going to be launching my beginner foundations to astrology course, which I'm really excited about. I'm also hosting basically different workshops for the big transits that we're experiencing right now, like Saturn entering Aries, even though that's only going to be for the summer and then it will retrograde back into Pisces and it won't be back into Aries full time until February of 2026. This is going to give you a perspective of what to look for, how to work with this summer specifically for like this foreshadowing energy that we're in so that it can set you up for the next 3 years once it is officially in Aries starting next year. Same with Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is going to be entering Cancer in about a week now, and that's going to set you up for the next year. So these workshops I'm going to be hosting, they are going to be available just as like a one-time thing, or you can, of course, be like a part of my membership and you get immediate access into that. So I do have an astrology membership as well. So I can always give the links just so, it's easy. It's all on my website. It's DanielleRosado.com. It always shows like upcoming workshops, upcoming courses, and it has my membership on there too. So if anyone's curious, definitely follow me as well. If you're just interested in astrology and you don't want to like invest right away, I always post different updates on there as often as I can. So definitely follow me with Align with Danielle on Instagram or Danielle Rosado on Facebook. And yeah, I would love to connect, just especially if you are someone who's like just beginning. I think that, there's so much that you could learn through the course that I'm going to be bringing out, which I'm really excited about.
That sounds so super exciting. Yeah, I've attended some of Danielle's workshops. They're always amazing. Like I said, I always pay for my year ahead reading every year with you. Yeah, and then obviously a couple of times throughout the years. Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you for walking this path with us, Sacred Rebel. If this episode stirred something in you, an awakening, a remembrance, a fire, trust, that it is not by accident. You are here for a reason. You are part of the rising wave of truth tellers, grid shifters, and system breakers reclaiming their divine design. If you loved today's conversation, share it with another rebel who's ready to rise. Leave a review and hit that subscribe button and stay plugged into this frequency because the revolution isn't coming. It's already here. Until next time, keep choosing your soul over the system, one sacred rebellion at a time. Have a good day.